know and love come to you like the sound of equipment being thrown from a moving van, the sound of dead cell phones and oil rigs, the sound of empty parking lots and school buses. They love to live and live to love. Ladies and gentlemen, Jesus Children of America, the White Stripes.
Hey there. Come on in. The water's great. This is the hardest podcast to podcast, and my name is Ryan Schaap. Hope you enjoyed last week's Barn Burner with our friend Dan, covering Let's Build a Home and the integral live history that song had with the White Stripes. A tremendous episode this week, I gotta say. Covering a song that, as the conversation flowed, I began to realize it began to creep up my, all-time White Stripes songs ranks. Our friend Jason Manning, a pillar of Vancouver alternative rock radio. Now you can hear him on Jack FM here in Vancouver. He's on the show this week, and we're talking about one of the best White Stripes covers of all time. It's I Just Don't Know What to Do With Myself. This is a song that, as soon as it was released, seemed timeless, seemed like a live favorite, and seemed like everybody knew the words. Sometimes it takes a few tours for a performer to step back off the mic because the crowd is singing along so loudly and so passionately, but with I Just Don't Know What to Do With Myself, it seemed to happen overnight. Always a huge song, always an important song in the White Stripes live set list, and a key song off of probably their biggest album, Elephant. It was the second single released off of Elephant, the first being Seven Nation Army, about 2 months before it came out. September 1st, 2003, it was released as the single, right after Jack White's broken finger from his car accident healed, and Jack and Meg were ready to carry on with the Elephant tour. This song has been recorded by a lot of artists over the years. Burt Bacharach wrote it back in the 60s. Dusty Springfield did a very good version of it. What began as a kind of clean and pleading song that comes across as someone talking to their former partner, the White Stripes take it, make it raw, make it loud and bombastic. And like we talk about in the conversation, it feels a lot more like the singer, the narrator, in this case Jack, is talking to himself and not his partner. This is a tremendous song that gets louder and heavier and bigger as it goes, and I can't say enough good things about this song. I do got to say it is a very exciting week for myself. Jack White playing 2 nights here in Vancouver at one of the best venues of all time, the Commodore Ballroom. A venue the White Stripes played in 2002, and just a Jack White tour that I am exceptionally excited about. In the conversation with Jason, he's also attending the concerts, and just raved about what we could expect, what we could be in store for, the type of set list Jack White is performing. I'm very excited for this show. If I have met you in line and asked you to scan a QR code to subscribe to this podcast, and you have, and you're listening, thank you so much. So if you're listening to this show for the first time, come on in, enjoy yourself. Check out our past episodes. We are covering and celebrating the White Stripes correctly. We are giving them their flowers. And if you want to give me some flowers, you can do that by dropping us an email at hardestpodtopod@gmail.com, or sending us a DM on hardestpodtopod on Instagram or TikTok or Blue Sky. And I just need to say that we received another great email this week, discussing something from our last episode. Traditionally, with the internet, with if you're a content creator or produce a show or whatever, I remember a marketing teacher once taught me that 90% of the internet is lurkers, and 10% are the engagers. With all the engagement I have received from you, the delightful listeners, you are throwing the 90-10 split the 90-10 ratio of lurkers to engagers way out of whack, and I am so grateful for that. Do not stop now. Send me an email, send me a DM. I want to hear from you. I want you to give me your guess as to what the 3 secret songs we have reserved for Jack White are, and give me your thoughts on past episodes, and give me your thoughts on what songs you would like to hear. And if you've been enjoying this show for a while, since we started in mid-April, a while, oh my God. If you've been enjoying this show for the last few weeks and want to support it, all we ask is you go down to buymeacoffee.com/hardestpodtopod, buymeacoffee.com/hardestpodtopod. You can give us a few bucks as a one-off. You can set it up for a monthly donation. Every penny that we're getting from these generous people is going right back into the show and to cover expenses. I have 2 things to report before we get into our conversation this week. I just came from batting practice with a couple of our beer league softball teammates. Really feeling confident about my form and my mechanics and my game. So the batting practice report is positive. As for the Jack White to appear on this show progress report, no news, unfortunately, is good news, but you never know. And that is where you step in. We need this show to get louder and louder. And with your help, spreading the word of this show and growing our footprint, it might get loud. Tell your friends, tell your music lovers, tell your White Stripes enthusiasts, tell your people that you think really need to get into this band, direct them onto this show. I will get them into this band. This band, of course, is the White Stripes. It is time for our call to action. And there's 2. First off, you're hitting pause on this show and you are going to your streaming platform of choice and you are listening to track 4 off of Elephant and listening to I Just Don't Know What to Do With Myself. Hit pause and go take a listen. I will wait patiently. And now that you're back, there is a second call to action. This is probably the first episode of the hardest podcast to podcast with a key emphasis on the music video. So go to YouTube. Go to youtube.com. You don't have to put www in anymore. I asked. Go to YouTube. Go find the official video for this. It's black and white. It features Kate Moss pole dancing in a black bikini, and it was polarizing and a half back in 2003, and it's all integral to our conversation. On that note, it's time for my conversation with Jason Manning about I Just Don't Know What to Do With Myself. Our guest this week has been a fixture in Vancouver's alternative rock radio scene for over a decade. You can hear him weekdays on Jack FM, where he also curates the music. He is Jason Manning. Jason, you told me earlier, before we hit record, that you've interviewed Jack White in the past. What is something about the man that resonated with you in those conversations?
What resonated with me was what an absolutely ridiculously smart man he is, but he also has a very good memory. And I did a live interview with him when I was working at the Peak, and he and Brendan Benson came in when they were touring with Rock on Tours. And Jack comes in with the sunglasses on, and I'm like, I'm doing this live. I'm not pre-recording this. Let's see where this goes. And I asked them both, hey, record store in stores, right? Because of vinyl and everything with Jack's involvement. And I said, well, who's the first artist or band you met? And he's like, Willie Dixon, and who was a blues guy. So he clearly was a little kid, and his dad took him to an in-store. And I thought, wow, like this is something, that there's something special behind the eyes there because he's so connected to that music.
Yeah. And experiences and he appreciates music so much that he he took that little, that random, visit to a record store and just took that memory and just like it's stuck with them ever since. It's something that's cherished, and
Yeah,
it seems like a lot of things in his life regarding music are cherished, which would be an understatement in my opinion.
I agree. And just his memory for shows, because we spoke after, and I, being a member of the Vault, I had one of the sets of a show I tried to go to in Fargo, North Dakota, and
That's a
my
famous show.
that is a famous show. And my partner and I was living in Winnipeg at that time, and we drove down. Her and I drove to Fargo, thinking, well, this show's either going to be in Fargo or Bismarck, so let's drive down and maybe we'll get there. We pull up to the theater, like an old vaudeville theater, and there was a line around the block, and I thought, this is awesome. We're in Fargo, North Dakota, and people are here at 9 o'clock in the morning around the block. So I brought that story up to him, and he told me, he was like, oh yeah, my cousin told me that when we were doing that tour, we had never played in Fargo. We had played in Moorhead, which is across the border. It's like a border town with
Yeah.
Minnesota. And I thought, wow, I'd never know that unless I was asking him to sign my album. And I hesitated, but I thought, you know what, this is probably going to be my only chance to speak to him in person. And he was gracious. He even remembered the front desk person's name on the way out. Like, come on.
Oh, love
5 out of 5 on Yelp, Jack White.
Another thing that is a 5 out of 5 on Yelp, besides our boy Jackie Boy, is this song. And the song this week is "I Just Don't Know What to Do with Myself." An amazing cover. I believe it's track 4 off of Elephant. The second single, if I remember correctly, it's Over There with the Records. Just before we dive into it and kind of go through the nuts and the bolts of the song, what's you listen to this song, what are you taking away from it? Like, where does it send you? What does it make you feel? Does it transport you somewhere? What are you taking away from this song?
Okay, so I was working at a radio station in Vancouver called XFM at the time, and we started playing the song, and it was just that it sounded like nothing else that was on the radio at the time, or in music, period. And there was this, what I remember is there was this bubbling wave, right, of who are these guys? Are they, the brother and sister, and blah blah blah? And we know that story, but there was a mysteriousness to it, that I liked. I didn't know everything about Jack White, and I kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I also just remember cranking it in the studio, but also just how well it's recorded. Like, for such a lo-fi record, that album, when I put it on the turntable, probably just like you do, and I crank it up, it's just like, good God, it sounds so goddamn good, and it hasn't aged a second.
No. I would say it's the most timeless of the albums that they released. Like, if you're going to ask me my opinion, it's the best. It's not my favorite. I still have a soft spot for Ricky Thump, but there is something completely timeless about the feel and the vibe and just the overall sound. And like you said, the recording, like the quality of the recording, because for this lo-fi approach at Toe Rag Studios in London, and it was recorded a few other places, you'd think it would sound like the first album, which was recorded in Jack's living room, just like the style. But I think it's a shining example of, like, if you have somebody that is a master of their craft, it doesn't matter what they're recording with or what tool they're using, it's going to be amazing. Because I've listened to the crap out of Elephant. Like, as I do this project, I'm kind of rediscovering the band, kind of refalling in love, and I was listening to it a lot this week, and it sounds incredible. There's so much space, like, it's so quiet yet so loud, and it just builds and builds and builds. And when we're talking about the song, before we dive into it, is my first thought is the last 28 seconds of I Just Don't Know What to Do with Myself. Go so hard. It sounds so good. And it's probably the most perfect encapsulation of the band. Of all the songs I can think of, if I'm like, who are the White Stripes? I'm playing the last 28 seconds of this song, and I go, I wish this 28 seconds was like an hour. It makes me think of "Got to Get You Into My Life" by the Beatles off Revolver, and I'm like, all right, it's a Paul song. It's all jangly and happy and whatever. And then the guitar kicks in and he starts bellowing out the "Got to Get You Into My Life." And I'm like, whoa, this song rules. And it's like, as soon as it gets good, it goes to the fade out. And I'm like, can I have 20 minutes of... Yeah, don't go. Come back.
Don't go.
So like any good movie, a song leaves you wanting more. And this song leaves me like, I want to listen to it again right after it.
You know what? I remember I remember when the album came out and I was listening to it over and over and over again. And even now, like, I don't know if you are like this with some of the records or any record, you still glean something from it. There's still things that you may not have maybe appreciated when you were younger that you hear differently now. You know what I mean, right? Like, like where you are in your life, it's all these different things. And for us, like when I think of legendary bands, I'm putting the White Stripes on that mantelpiece because they are, and those records are still so goddamn good. Plus, like you said off the start with how they were recorded, they were pretty crudely recorded with that cheap guitar he bought at Sears as a kid or whatever. And started playing. But what I love is that we follow those breadcrumbs because we're interested album to album to album in that short time. And when you re-listen to it, and just as we were talking backstage before we started this about the video too, it's just I always say this, it's like there's fairy dust in the air with some of these records that these guys did.
Yeah, and it's the authenticity, and it's the passion, and it's that cherish, the way they cherish music. And that's gonna be probably a theme through this episode, because I didn't know that this song existed in the White Stripes universe before Elephant. They're speaking with Terry Gross on NPR in 2005, and she brings up this cover.
Jack, would you talk about why you wanted to cover this song?
It was actually Meg's idea to do that song.
Oh, well, Meg, why don't you describe it?
I had heard the Dusty Springfield version of it, actually, and I just thought it was an amazing song. I had just gotten this CD, and I heard that song, and I'm like, you know what? I bet we could do that song. It would be fun to do that song. And so I suggested it to Jack, and he was into it. So,
did you want to sing it yourself?
No, I can't sing that high. Jack's a specialist in that one.
And I got a lot of people asking me, well, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? And I thought, wow, I thought it was sort of a universal thought. I just don't know what to do with myself. I just don't know what to do with myself. How that seems to be something that everyone would feel like 20 times a day.
Exactly. Right.
One of their best songs was Meg's idea. And she's empowered. She's hearing this song, be like, you know what? Like, we could do something with this. And it's
when you play those two songs side by side, they're totally different.
They are. This is my immature child brain speaking, but I'd never listened to the Dusty Springfield version. I've not listened to the Burt Bacharach version. I'm just like, oh, the White Stripes covered it. Real, kid approach, where I'm like, why do I need to listen to the other version if they made it good and they made it theirs? And I was listening to it this week. I'm like, well, this is a beautiful song, but I don't know how they got from that to this shrieking, heavy, just incredible. It's very reimagined. It all the parts are there, but it's so different, and it I don't know. The Dusty Springfield version sounds like, man, I miss my gal.
Yeah.
And who am I going to go see a movie with? Because I miss my gal. And then with the White Stripes version, you got Jack being like, I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life. I just don't know what to do with myself. And you're like, man, this guy's got some problems.
You know, I never even thought about that. Like, that never crossed my mind because, like you, I didn't know it was a Bacharach David song, Hal David song, and
Hmm.
I went and listened to it. I remember like when I figured this out, and it's 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 just, but that's why they are capital A artists
Yes,
because they can
because
create something like that.
no, they absolutely can. And so I thought that, I thought when I heard this interview this week, actually, I listened to it for our first episode, but when I heard it, I thought they were talking about like, oh, in 2001 or 2002 when they're putting together the songs for Elephant, that's when Meg had this idea. And I was like, I go onto everybody's favorite website, setlist.fm, and I just start looking up how long has, how
Yeah.
well performed is this song. And they had been playing it since May of 1999. So before the first album comes out, they had performed it roughly 23 times before it appeared on Elephant and properly recorded. So I was like, okay, well, this is a crude band for all the right reasons. They're rough around the edges, and their live show is loud and heavy and chaotic. I can only imagine what the first versions of I Just Don't Know What to Do with Myself sounded like. They had it figured out, the arrangements and everything, like as soon as they started performing it. The oldest versions of this live song I could find, it's arranged just like it is on the album. Which is one of their best songs in terms of arrangements and like sonically. There's so many. There's only two. There's only two of them, and the things that he does, they're all so simple but do so much. Like it just adds this huge dynamic, and it makes this band feel. And that's when they're at their best. It makes the band feel like they are gigantic, and there's 15 arms, and they're just making this beautiful sound. So right off the bat, we got to give Meg some flowers for having the idea to come up with one of their best songs. It's up there with Jolene as their best cover, and and
Mm-hmm.
fun fact, this is the first cover that we've done on the Hardest Podcast to Podcast.
I like it. I like it.
But yeah, back to the song. This is a song that had been around since the '60s. In terms of lyrics, you got a man crooning or a person crooning that they're just so lonely they don't know what to do with themselves. They're longing. I'm so used to doing everything with you, planning everything for two. And then, of course, movies only make me sad. Parties make me feel bad. I got to say, this is probably the first, this week was probably the first time I really sat down and looked at the lyrics and kind of thought about them. And I'm like, boy, Dusty made this sound kind of like fun. Like, oh, I can't see the movie and I don't want to be the party for one. And when you hear it from Jack, I don't know about you, but I'm hearing it like, man, like this is a lost soul.
Yes, he feels so it feels desolate the way that he sings the song, and he is like, to use the word, longing, but he's longing in a different way than originally was sung with Dusty.
Yeah.
But like you said, he makes that song his own, but it's like this battle cry
Yeah.
in the way that he is. It's like he's on a Juliet balcony, like belting out the song to this girl, hopefully, or like,
Yeah.
Cusack and Say Anything with the Ghetto Blaster. It's the same thing because they're so. It's just they, I should say, made that song their own. It's a malleable song, and that's why I think I like it so much, even after realizing that it was a cover. But like you said, when you're, doing the guitar, that guitar riff that he does, you're just like, what? I want to listen to this again and again and again, like a psycho.
I don't know about you. I can't think of a song that has similar sound, similar kind of structure, and just just goes the way it does. Like, it is one of their more unique sounding songs. It really stands out, and it felt like, it felt special the first time you heard it. Like,
Yeah.
there's in speaking, in discussing My Doorbell, I'm like, it is a busy, catchy song, but there's so much space to just kind of absorb it. And I feel for a song that is as chaotic as we interpret it, there's so many moments to just have a breath and feel what you're hearing. And the notes, like, it's not a jam-packed song. It's very spaced out. It feels like an uncompressed song, and they do it perfectly.
I always think of The Hardest Button to Button as well, because that's another, like, when you talk about songs not sounding like anything else,
Mm-hmm.
and then the video, the subsequent video, and when you listen to that song now, it's still like, and maybe that's just us maturing as listeners.
Yeah.
It just sounds that much better. But it's like I said, when you listen to songs at different points in your life, it just, like, you're right. You're totally right. These songs are different than anything else out there. And that's, doesn't it? It feels like you made a good investment where you're like, I've invested in this band, and
Yeah.
and I it's paying dividends because he's still creating, and he's still creating and being different. Not
Mm-hmm.
maybe as different as everybody else per se, but he's creating music that we still like,
Yeah.
and can, and without getting too far away from this song we're talking about. But it's nice that as the years have gone by, that, oh yeah, he's still like a real creative mofo. Like,
Yeah,
he's still got that thing.
he has a desire. These are the songs that are coming out of him, and they're not as some aren't as catchy as the others, some aren't as successful as the others, and some don't sound like the White Stripes, but it's, we always circle back to the thing that makes this band so special is how just authentic and just genuine what they did was. Like, there was, outside of the presentation, they weren't faking a lot, and it was
No.
the goal of the band was to be as authentic and as real as possible with the limitations that were put in front of them. And so, yeah, like, No Name, you take a solo Jack White record and you're like, well, it's not as great as Elephant, but he's putting everything he can into it, and it
Mhm.
still resonates, and you still hear
Mhm.
it, whether it's the
Yeah.
loudest song or the most quiet song. That's what draws people back, and because they buy in,
Yeah.
they believe in him.
Like, when I think about when Blunderbuss came out, because that was sort of the first big,
Mhm.
right? That was, and when that
2012,
album, yeah, when that album came out, I must have listened to that album front to back a million times in my car.
Mhm.
And it was just, and I was discovering things, and I realized, I'm like, I don't do this as often as I normally do with albums, where if they're not great, I'll just, as we all do, we just move on.
Yeah.
But it's also too, with the turntable thing, record player thing. It's like, I love listening to those White Stripes albums, and did after before we talked tonight, because they're just so, they just grab you back in. And like you said, those solo albums, they might not be 5 out of 5s, but he's still doing it.
Yeah, you still feel it, and that's what separates the White Stripes from the Black Keys.
Oh yeah.
We've I was chuckling to myself today. I'm like, man, there's been like 4 of these episodes where we've somehow slinked in like knocking the Black Keys. So gonna have to make it a trend. No knock
Well,
to them.
but you said something. You
Yeah.
used a word that I really like, when you describe music, or anything that you're passionate about, is authentic.
Yeah.
And I have nothing. Uh, I feel like the Black Keys are the Black Keys, and they're derivative, right? They're the McDonald's of that ilk. And there's, I don't want to sound negative about them, but they tried to go after chase the crumbs of what the Stripes were doing and other bands at the time. But there's, when I see an interview with Jack White, there's a layer of authenticity in what he does and how he speaks and what he talks about and what he's excited about. And, I could bump into him on the street and talk about the Tigers. If I bumped into Pat Carney, the guy might punch me out, right? Like, it just doesn't feel, he just doesn't, like, they never seem happy. They go on stage. I saw them the last time they were here in Vancouver. I enjoyed the first couple of records.
El Camino's a good album. So is
Brothers. El Camino's, Brothers is great. And El Camino is awesome. But that's the thing that we were talking about with Jack, is that we have been at ground floor as we were with Black Keys, and the artistry has continued. I think Dan Auerbach's solo albums are great. I saw his solo tours. I think he's a great producer, but sometimes you got to just put it into park for a few years, because I think they just kept, from a radio standpoint, it was just like,
oh, wait, another one? Oh, it kind of sounds like the last one.
Yeah, like, can't you guys just take a break? But that's me being honest, and there's lots of other artists that I really like and whatever, besides Jack and the White Stripes. But that's the thing with music that is, it's, some people can talk about art on their wall. Some people can talk about their wine collection or whatever they have. I'll happily talk to you about my vinyl collection anytime.
Hell yeah, brother.
But but there's, I always felt like Black Keys were for the masses. And even though the White Stripes reached the masses and will always with Seven Nation Army, I always felt there was a ceiling for the Black Keys. And that's not a hack. That's the truth.
Yeah. Love that we got another Black Keys Tough But Fair on this show. Maybe that's our new segment, Black Keys Tough But Fair.
Black Keys Blackout, yeah.
Into the next segment on the show, it's the song's legacy and a little segment we call Little Room, Big Impact. Let's dive into some reviews really quick. Rolling Stone loved Elephant when it came out in 2003. They gave it 5 stars. Pitchfork gave it a 6.9 out of 10 and weren't as stoked on it. And that's a controversial or polarizing review that has also lasted a long time. But Rolling Stone spoke on this song. I just don't know what to do with myself. And I say, in the White Stripes' theatrical mauling, fantastic descriptor, of the Burt Bacharach Hal David ballad, I just don't know what to do with myself. The guitars veer from rumpled strum to car horn fuzz, and at one point, an extraordinary squeal of death ray feedback.
That's good.
Can't argue that.
Nope. That's very well put together. Isn't it funny, too, by the way, while we're talking about this, that Pitchfork revisits albums and re-reviews them of albums they toted on? And it's like, you guys are goofs.
Come on.
Yeah, like, own the review. You don't get to change history. You guys slagged it. Own it.
I think Rolling Stone owns that they crapped on every Led Zeppelin album.
Yeah.
We were wrong. Hey.
Yeah. They talk about it. I think Jimmy Page talks about it in Becoming Led Zeppelin, the movie was just in. And it's really interesting that, 54 years later, it's like, I still have a bone to pick. But they had the last laugh, and so did Jack White. I mean, I always think of Jack White's face. I want to be Jack White's face, like in It Might Get Loud, when Jimmy Page starts playing Kashmir like he's just a kid.
No, it's Whole Lot of Love.
Whole Lot of Love. Sorry, yes, thank you.
Dude, I sell everybody on that movie. And I'm like, all you need to do is watch when Jimmy Page starts playing Whole Lot of Love on his Les Paul, and the Edge and Jack White turn into 8-year-old boys, and they're just like, and that's all you need to know about how authentic all of the musicians on that doc are, and how special that that doc is.
It really is. I agree with you. I feel like they should show it in schools.
Oh,
It's that good.
Yep.
It's that good.
Yeah, everybody go watch It Might Get Loud on your streaming platform of choice this week. There will be a quiz next week.
Quiz.
Speaking of videos, we go into the next segment, which is Get Behind the Camera, Satan. Let's talk about this video. Now, the White Stripes have a storied history with music videos. Michel Gondry did Fell in Love with a Girl. He did Hardest Button to Button. I think he did. He did Denial Twist. They also had Dead Leaves in the Dirty Ground. That was really remarkable. Seven Nation Army was done by somebody else, but it was simplistic, memorable. Just the
pyramid,
just shooting at you. Great video. There's a handful of we call them on this show. We call them MTV2 videos. The one for Hotel Yorba, the one for Black Math, the one for We're Gonna Be Friends. They didn't get the A shows, but they were still made. So you talk to anybody about the White Stripes, and on this show for the first handful of episodes, I'm like, hey, what stood out to you about the band? Everybody says the Fell in Love with a Girl Lego video. Yeah. So they have this reputation for music videos being just the perfect way to sell their level of crazy. Like, here's what we're a unique band. Here's a music video that replicates it. So in 2003, I always butcher her last name. Is it Coppola? Sofia
Coppola. Yeah, Francis. Like, I always think Francis Ford Coppola or Coppola.
Yeah,
I think it's tomato. Like, I don't want to say tomato, but it's pretty close. It makes me want to like look up the phonetic way it's said on Google.
So Sofia Coppola, who is in the middle of two great movies, 1999's The Virgin Suicides, which was a great movie, and then 2003, the amazing movie Lost in Translation. So she's got a lot of fantastic. She's got a lot of buzz around her, and I don't know the exact process in this, whether it was the record, the big label V2 at the time, or how it came together. But she was tasked, hey, this is their next single. Do you have an idea for a music video? And so Sofia Coppola listened to the song a handful of times, and I don't know, she goes, what makes perfect sense about this video, about how odd it is that she goes, according to the New York Times, the concept came easily to Coppola. I said, I don't know, how about Kate Moss doing a pole dance? I said that because I would like to see it. That's the way I work. I try to imagine what I like to see. So the video is, it's Kate Moss in a dark black and white theater. She's in a black bikini, and she's on like a box, and then moves to the pole and kind of does this. I don't know. It's a performance with not a lot of structure to it. It's kind of
like performance art almost.
Yeah, and it was not. It was. I don't want to say it was negatively received, but it was. Everybody kind of watched it like you do with something quite arty, and you're like, huh?
What does that mean?
Yeah, like, you leave a Vancouver International Film Festival movie, and you're like, I'm going to think about this for about 25, 30 minutes, and then I'm going to get it, and then I'm going to Google it and make sure that I did get it. But, I don't have any knock against the look of it. It's a odd music video. It's kind of haunting. It kind of depicts a woman that's, I don't know, lost, confused, a bit rudderless, doesn't kind of have direction. I have no knock with Kate Moss or the video or the director, but I don't think it fits the song, and it left people kind of, wondering, is this it? And it's kind of interesting that this video fell in the videography between Seven Nation Army and Hardest Button to Button. And it's essentially forgotten in White Stripes history. Jason, you watched the video recently. What did you?
It's awesome.
Really?
I wish I had Sofia Coppola on Zoom just to bring her in for a minute, because the thing is it's actually a really cool video. And I remember at the time being like, all right, I love whatever they put on Much or whatever at the
Yeah.
time, I'm gonna watch. And I thought it was cool because it was just sorry, there's two things here. It's that the White Stripes weren't controlling their image
Mm-hmm.
or what they were trying to do, but they were giving it to Sofia Coppola, who we both think is awesome.
You can trust,
And,
if there's somebody you can trust, it's her.
oh, it's her, and she, gets Kate Moss, and I think it's a beautiful video. I think it's noirish. It's
Yeah.
got lots of it's subtle, and it's like the term I always hear, less is more. And sometimes with those videos at that time, less is more was great, because when you think about the hardest button to button video with all that stop action,
that's a lot.
And it's a lot, and I don't know about you, but I would watch that video and have since and thought, how long did that take to do? And like, did they want to punch everyone after that day? Because you're stopping and you're starting and you're stopping. But the thing is maybe we didn't realize it at the time. They were creating art, and they were letting other people create that art for them without them being like, well, I want this director and I want to do this. I feel like there was a lot of offloading, because at the time, I think that Jack was still learning to drive the fame bus, or the success bus of what they were gonna, end up accomplishing, which they became who they are.
I, just having this conversation now, one thing popped in my head. The video is so subtle, and kind of like, it's subtle. It's very primitive, and it makes you kind of, you focus on Kate Moss, but after a while you're just listening to the song.
Yes.
And we just spent 20 minutes going on, well, this is the best. This is an amazing song. It sounds amazing. It's so haunting. It's so unique. So, just kind of having the gears slowly turn in my brain. I'm like, you know what? Maybe having a music video that is not so much about the video and more about the showcasing of the song, maybe that was a good thing. I think about the Replacements. Their best song is Bastards of Young, and what was the music video on a lark? They're like, just film a turntable playing the song. So that was their own self-destruction and getting in their own way, but it's like, man, here's a really good song. Here's a know nothing music video, because the song speaks for itself.
Yeah.
So I'm changing my tune as we go here, Jason.
I like it. And when you talk about that Replacements video, I also remember the U2 video for one, and it was just a buffalo.
Yeah.
And it's just a buffalo running. And I remember watching it on Much Music as a kid going, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
But you understand it's like, no, this is cool. There's no, the band's not in it. It's somebody's come up with this concept and they're going with it. And as a movie nerd, who, like, I don't know how to make a movie, but I can watch the hell out of them.
Sure.
I appreciate when I see people's directors' creations come to light, because that came off a napkin or a piece of paper, and all of a sudden it's a 3.5-minute video with Kate Moss. And wouldn't you like to know, like, hey, Kate, you know what? I got this video for this band called the White Stripes. Would you like to be in it? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
And how do all those steps fall into place?
And for all we know, Kate is or at the time was respected the band or was a big fan. And it's like, I'd love to, you have these two artists in Sofia Coppola and the White Stripes, but yeah, like, why wouldn't you? So, it's hard to knock somebody, in that spot. The other thing that popped into my mind is, I think we were talking about this before we got rolling, but the White Stripes were unique and had everything about their albums, one after another, was special and different. They were not reverting back to easy things, and everything about the White Stripes is hard. And remember, I think at a time, I'm raving about all the music videos, but I mean, if you just put out, Fell in Love with a Girl, Dead Leaves, Seven Nation Army, you don't want to be the cool music video band. You don't want to be
No.
OK Go.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I absolutely love that. Like, you know what? This, as much as we have good music videos, we can't be the music video band. We're the fucking band. We're the music band, and we have an amazing song. So all of these factors come into play. Yeah, the start of this conversation, I'm using my 15-year-old brain, and here I am using my 37-year-old brain going, you know what? With hindsight and the approach that an artist takes, it makes perfect sense. I love it. It's not the most memorable video, but like, it doesn't need to be. It's special and unique, and goddamn it, I don't know a lot of music videos that look like it. Just like we don't know a lot of songs that sound like I just don't know what to do with myself.
You're totally right, and I like this because the band didn't go. They did not, and they never were. And I think this is maybe why we like them that much more. They never followed, like what you said, that formulaic video thing. When they toured weird places. You remember when they did that cross Canada tour, and they did stuff because they could, and they weren't like, well, let's just do the arena tour. They're like, no, fuck that shit. We're gonna play 3 nights in theaters in these cities, or 2 nights in these theaters, because it's more special to the audience, and for us to connect with the audience. Like, to me, the word I'm thinking of is, it wasn't calculated.
No.
It was the right people were around Jack, and I think that his and Meg's vision, they were able to, like, could you imagine navigating that? Like, you wake up one morning and you're like, you roll over and somebody phones you and says, yeah, we got Sofia Coppola to do this video, and I think we got Kate Moss to star in it. Like, are you Jack White going, holy shit, like, it's all starting to happen? Like, I often wonder that, or when they play Glastonbury, or all these big events that they did. But they were a band that, I mean, I know because you were too young, I got to see them at the frickin' Commodore. And then at the worst venue ever made in the history of the world, the Plaza of Nations.
Concrete and glass, baby.
Concrete. It's a great mix. It's the 80s. We had the brass and glass tables. Let's make everything glass and steel and put it into a concert venue. It'll be great.
For quick sidebar for those listening, the Plaza of Nations was a structure made for the World's Fair here in Vancouver called Expo 86, and it was a good medium-sized kind of outdoor venue with a glass roof on it and kind of concrete and glass all around it. I would say, what do you think the cap was? 3,000 people?
3 or 4. Like, it wasn't much. Like, I always remember seeing Beck there, and No Doubt and stuff, like in the early 2000s, and them in 2000. What was that, 2003 they played there?
2003, yep.
And I remember, like, Don't Call Me Dustin Hoffman and Rain Man, but I always remember that being a cool night. Like, it was in the fall.
Yep.
But
September
I always remember
9th.
Wow. So right, it was starting to get cooler.
Yep.
But I always remember the dudes that were standing on either end of the stage, and it was just like, wow, this is like weird Elvis shit. Like, what is going on this stage?
Hell yeah.
And I just remember how good they were. Unfortunately, it was a true story when you talk about venues. Like, they should have played, I don't know where at that point where they could have played it
or something.
Yeah, like, just, but they were on that precipice, as you remember. They were exploding into the biggest band in the world.
Absolutely. Jack had some comments circling back to the music video. I vividly remember as a kid there being like a music tabloid that said like that Jack was pissed about it, and maybe that fit his image, his public image, or the kind of the gimmick he had at the time, or maybe he was upset because it was out of his control. But I vividly remember a magazine scan, and I'm going to look for it till I'm blue in the face, where it said the Stripes got pimped regarding and he said that there was another follow-up quote like I've desecrated or I've disrespected Burt Bacharach or something. So
Yeah.
they acted like they weren't, and maybe they were, like, we don't know, but they weren't the most outgoing or didn't speak a lot on this video, and there's not a lot on it. It's something that was
No.
really lost in the shuffle, but as we kind of internalize everything and kind of use hindsight, that there's nothing wrong with that. It's, you had a band doing things what they wanted to do at the time. Nothing was calculated. So yeah, if you have a strange video that doesn't resonate with everyone in 2003, it didn't hurt them. They got bigger after that, and that's fine. And
but to your point, I think if Jack was, like you were describing, pissed, when you're an artist, I think that it's hard to let go of your artistry and let other people,
for sure,
comment on it or create something that's based on music you've created. That would be, like, speaking for myself personally, I feel like that would be something really hard to give up, where
Yeah.
you sort of have to take a leap of faith and go, I have to trust the process here, and I have to allow this video, as an example, to go out into the world and see what happens. Like, just imagine before streaming services, when we would do in the olden days, we'd line up and buy a record or a CD at a store, and you didn't know, like now with streaming, immediately if it's a dud, where you'd have to wait a week to find out if you were a dud. And I always think, as an artist in that era, especially the CD era, which it was close to the height of,
Yeah.
that that album sold a shitload, but it was so different than, like you described throughout this conversation, how different it was than anything that was on the radio or in pop culture music wise.
Dude, I listened to XFM so much in like 2005 because they had a transmitter out of Abbotsford where I grew up, and it was crystal clear.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was, what was the top 5 at 5 or something?
Yeah, we did the top 6 at 6.
Yeah, and C Fox had their countdown, but like at the time, I remember for weeks it would be either Seven Nation Army was number 1 or Evanescence was number 1, and those two,
Bring Me to Life.
Yeah, I had to hear Bring Me to Life. Like, those were the songs that you heard, so it stood out. It was so vastly different than what was on the radio. And they say, like, oh, the garage rock revival. I'm like, man, the White Stripes didn't really sound like that after White Blood Cells. It changed quickly.
It did change quickly. You're right. And they became, I think with maturity and life experience, they just became that much more special, or they did well with that spotlight, is all I can say.
They were a band that never kind of wrote about or sang about the classic tropes, like, what separated them from the Strokes is that the Strokes would end up writing songs about going out and getting drunk and trying to get laid. The White Stripes were putting out, not that there is nothing wrong with songs about going out and getting drunk and trying to get laid, but that's not what the White Stripes did. And like everything just kind of, they're a tropeless band. They had no tropes. And
like, honestly, you should call this the No Trope Cast. I don't know why, because it's such a great word. Because you're right. You're right. There's no tropes. There's no fill.
Yeah.
There's no like we didn't have to watch them get bloated with double albums, right? we they gave us the meat and potatoes that we needed, but then they like sort of took off in their V formation going somewhere else.
Yeah, and they're like, hey, man, those meat and potatoes were really good. Wow.
They were. And no tropes.
No tropes.
So
no trope band.
I love that word so much.
We've hit the nail on the head, and it's a no trope zone. Let's go into we'll do our final segment on the show, which is the live performance history of this song. As we said earlier, they had been performing it, sporadically for about 2-3 years before Elephant came out. And in the 605 documented performances on set lists, the song was played 204 times. It was a absolute crowd pleaser. It's their 18th most performed song of all time. And they knew that it is a special song. It was, it lived towards the end of the main, every set was different from the White Stripes. They didn't have a set list, but there was some similar structures to it. So this, I Just Don't Know What to Do with Myself would appear towards the end of the main set or closer, or it would be up on the encore. Like, it is a song that just people seem to know the words to almost instantly. And I was watching a handful of performances, and I'll share some on our social medias. Like, people were singing along to this song quickly because, like we said, sonically, there's a lot of room to just absorb it. And there was a lot of room for for the band to get quiet and hear the audience sing it. So people really loved it. And yeah, it tore the house down. It's a very special song. I feel like in terms of recordings, it's better than Jolene. Jolene is more of a live staple. The few recordings of Jolene aren't up to snuff, and that's fine. It was it was a B-side or just a single. But yeah, this conversation shed a hell of a lot of light on this song, and I'm looking at it for a song I already loved. I'm looking at it differently, and I'm looking at a music video and an artistic direction that I had no idea we would go down that route at the start of this.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this because it brings you. I think it brings you to that point in your life where you are discovering bands and you really love them, right? You really appreciated them or listened to them, whatever. But it's, to think about that video, and that's how I think now. I'm like, how did that video get made? And, how did Kate Moss get involved? Like, I would love to ask Jack White all those questions. But I also, it goes back to the start of our conversation too, the word mysteriousness of the band. I love that we don't know how it all went down. And how that song just took on a life of its own, right?
No, I completely agree. Like, we have, I've created a show format that, that kind of feels very Jack Whitey of random mystery songs. I've got mystery songs set aside for him. I won't tell anybody. If I somehow have a conversation with him and he goes, "What are the songs?" I'll be like, "Fucking come on the show and find out."
Yeah.
There's mystery about this band, and as you grow to experience them more and appreciate their music, it's like, I don't need to know the mystery. I just need to know that it was it's what makes it special. Is you don't need to know every single thing.
No, and isn't that like, that's something really important I find now, is that I don't want to know everything about the Beatles. I don't want to know everything about Zepp. I don't, right? Because like, if I met Robert Plant, I would say to him, "Hey man, what are your favorite records?" I wouldn't want to be like, "Yeah, so tell me back in 1973 when you were, doing this and that and whatever." Where I'm going back here is that Jack, I don't want to know everything about Jack and Meg White. I want to leave Meg White alone. I want her to enjoy her life. She doesn't owe us anything. There's no true Hollywood story here. Like, she just left, and that's okay. And I think you and I are mature enough to accept that. But both you and I were talking backstage, like, during this conversation we've been having, I'm like, I wonder if he's gonna do this fucking song when he comes to Vancouver and we see them at the Commodore. I think my head might pop off my, like,
you'll be on one side of the room, I'll be on the other. We'll just lock eyes.
Just lock eyes and boom.
And that's how they went out in a blaze of glory.
They had a great time, and they got the posters they wanted. But yeah, it's like, there's something that I think too, and you can tell me to shut up, but there's something about there's something about knowing that we get to see him in a small venue with a catalog of songs. And again, it goes to everything we were talking about where we don't get to know everything.
Yeah.
I don't want to know the set list. And he
No.
picks it as he goes. And that's so goddamn awesome. Like,
Yeah.
nobody does that anymore. Everything's so sanitized. This is like, we get to see something. It's why I love The Dead, because I never know what I'm going to get.
Sure.
It's the same thing with Jack White, that there's always mystery. And you and I will get to experience that and then be able to listen to that on Nugs or whatever after and go, oh my God, that show was fucking awesome. This show he played 17 songs or something. And the next night he played 21 and he goes on for 90 and he's done. And I love that.
Yeah. And when you hear those, whether you're revisiting a live performance off the No Name tour, or you're listening to I Just Don't Know What to Do With Myself for the umpteenth time, it's like this special music resonates with you, and then you kind of, it transports you. You remember how excited you were when you heard it, whatever time or what experiences, and that's what makes music so special. That's why it activates the other side of your brain, and that's why it's just something everybody needs, and it does us so good. And I'm very excited to experience Jack White next week with in the same room with you, Jason. I'll look out for you.
We should do a little after. Let's make sure we compare notes. I'd love to talk to you about how you felt the show was.
I think there could be some sort of recording process that's also a conversation that maybe becomes something else. But I would like to discuss this with you. Jason, this was a fantastic conversation. I got so much out of it. I hope you did too.
I did. I really did.
Us.
Thank you.
That was Jason Manning. I am Ryan Schaap. That was a tremendous conversation. Breaking down, I Just Don't Know What to Do With Myself. The best 29 seconds of White Stripes related music are in that song. Big week for us. Going to see Jack White twice this week. And we'll have a brand new episode next week. You don't know what the song is, but I do. And if you've stuck around this long, I'm going to give you a little hint about what we're going to discuss. It is a White Stripes song that has been played a few times on the No Name tour. That's all you get for now. No more tips. No more tricks. No more spoilers. No more scavenger hunts. We're done with the scavenger hunts. The Hardest Podcast to Podcast is hosted and produced by Ryan Schaap. Artwork by Catlin. Amanda Schultz is our assistant editorial producer.